My wife left me for another man when I became ill, and then attempted to reconcile with me when she discovered that I had recovered and become financially secure. I am currently 47 years of age, and I have recently experienced significant emotional distress. My wife began to distance herself from me and began seeing another man after she learned that I was suffering from a terminal illness. This incident marked the beginning of a series of unfortunate events. Approximately 1 year ago, I collapsed in my office and was subsequently transported to the emergency room. A series of comprehensive medical tests were conducted, and I was subsequently diagnosed with a serious illness, a liver infection. If left untreated, the infection could potentially become terminal. My wife was out of town at the time, attending her friend's wedding. I did not inform her of my condition. I did not discuss this over the phone because I was concerned about alarming her when she returned and found me pale with illness. She was initially shocked, but I did not receive the warmth I had anticipated from her in response to my disclosure of such a severe illness. While she did not exhibit overt coldness, I perceived her response as more disappointment than sadness or distress. I was under the impression that the disease was a direct result of my actions. I chose to focus on my recovery and maintain a positive outlook. It became increasingly challenging for me to balance my work and health. I was advised to make significant changes to my diet and exercise routine. With this new schedule, it was difficult for me to work effectively at work, yet I attempted to maintain a balance between my work and my health, but I found that my wife was drifting away from me. She was not as close as she used to be, and whenever I wanted to be intimate with her, she would ask me to rest or would say that she was tired. This was distressing to me, and I confronted her about it. She said that she was just stressed out because of my illness, but I doubted that because I had observed it is of concern that the individual in question did not provide the necessary support, which ultimately led to the individual distancing themselves from the situation. This was a deliberate act to distract from the stressors that were present. The individual became overly invested in their work, neglecting their dietary routine and, on occasion, even their medication. This ultimately led to a significant decline in health, necessitating hospitalization. Upon my return to the hospital, my wife was present throughout my stay. She provided excellent care and support. I was hospitalized for a week and received a clear warning from my doctor that I needed to prioritize my health or risk further complications. I was advised to take a leave of absence from work to rest and recuperate, as work was exacerbating my condition. It was not feasible for me to take a leave of absence from work. In fact, I am not employed by any random corporate entity. Rather, I am employed by a company that was founded by my close friends. I was initially approached to join the company during my college years, but I was uncertain if it would be permissible, so I accepted another position instead. Approximately 5 to 6 years later, when the company he subsequently offered me a senior position with a competitive remuneration package. I accepted the position and have since regarded the company as my own, assuming personal responsibility for its growth. I oversee a vital sector of the business. After a period of recuperation, I resumed my duties on one occasion when I was discussing my report with the doctor was contacted by the founder and CEO of my friend's company over the phone. The CEO was enraged that I had not informed him of my health issues and the overtime I had been working. He demanded that I take a sabbatical and rest until I had fully recovered. I informed him of my condition and that I might never be able to return to work. I therefore requested that I be permitted to work for as long as possible. I have been working for approximately 6 months, and I am seeking to secure my family's future. I had not discussed this with anyone, not even my wife. However, I was not having a very good feeling about my health. I believe it is deteriorating, and in this case, I simply want to acquire as much money as I can so that my wife can lead a decent life. I became emotional and expressed my concerns to my friend, and I discussed the matter further, and he assured me that, in the event of my demise, he would assume responsibility for my family's financial obligations. This was a significant source of reassurance for me, but I was reluctant to impose on him. He proposed that I take a 6-month sabbatical from work without a reduction in remuneration. Additionally, he suggested that I could occasionally work from home if I wished. I informed my wife of these developments. I informed my wife that I would be ceasing my employment the following day. She inquired as to the circumstances surrounding this decision. I replied that I had been fired. She then asked if my health was the reason for my departure. I responded with a sarcastic tone, indicating that my deteriorating health condition was the primary factor. I then attempted to alleviate the situation by recounting a prank that had been played on me. My wife's immediate response was, "Are you dying?" This response caused me great distress. She was remarkably insensitive, but I played along and said yes. She then asked how long, to which I replied that I did not know. The doctor had said it might be 6 to 7 months or sooner. I had expected her to break into tears and that I would crack up, but her reaction was very cold. She then asked how I would manage my finances, noting that I did not have enough savings to cover her. "I have previously advised you to terminate your employment with your friend's company and seek alternative opportunities overseas. This would have enabled us to accumulate sufficient wealth for me to lead a comfortable lifestyle." However, her primary concern was not my well-being, but rather the prospect of my demise, which she perceived as a potential loss of financial security and inheritance. I attempted to assuage her concerns by informing her of the equity I hold in the company, which could have provided her with a source of income in the event of my death. I considered informing her of the equity I own in the company, which would provide her with a comfortable standard of living in the event of my demise. However, I decided to withhold this information, hoping to observe her reaction. I believe I did not mention that I was granted a significant equity stake in the company upon reaching our first major milestone. In today's currency, the value of this stake is close to $1. The value of the company has increased to $1 million, and it is likely to continue to grow as the company expands. My marriage has become largely transactional, with little emotional connection. My wife no longer asks about my health, and she leaves home in the morning and returns late in the evening, often eating out. She works at a salon as a nail artist during peak seasons, a situation that has been disturbing to me. However, I have chosen to focus on my health instead. Last month, she came to me and asked when we were getting divorced. I was devastated. I had not considered divorce as a possibility in this health condition. I was at a loss for words. She informed me that there was nothing to be shocked about. She has to move on, and it is better that she starts distancing herself from me. I sarcastically asked her if she had already found my replacement. She replied in the negative and said that the man she had known for some time has passed since she began to view him as a potential partner and to engage in dates with him. I am unable to adequately convey the emotions I experienced on that day. I felt a sense of unease and a sense of betrayal. I have discussed this with a friend, who inquired as to whether I should remove my wife from our legal documents. I have decided not to do so, as I do not wish to refer to her as my wife. Instead, I will refer to her as J, as this is the name by which I have come to know her. I have also removed her as my legal nominee in the equity, as well as from other legal documents. I have not informed J of this decision, as I intend to reveal it as a surprise at my retirement. By that time, money would have become a significant factor in the relationship. I had not informed her of this, and she would have concealed her true self for the sake of the money. I should note that I have been diagnosed with a serious liver infection. If I do not take care of myself, it might eventually become terminal. However, with God's grace, the doctors are still hopeful of my recovery from this stage, provided I follow their instructions. These include medication, lifestyle changes, rest, and other measures. I was simply attempting to prank my wife by telling her that I was terminally ill. This was done to shock her and to test her reaction. I had not intended for this prank to have such a profound effect on our relationship. I have since realized the error of my ways and have apologized to my wife. I would like to express my gratitude to all those who have expressed their kind wishes. I agree with your assessment that I was justified in deceiving her about my terminal illness, as it has enabled me to gain insight into her true character. Otherwise, my entire life would have been a lie. I do not have children, as my parents passed away a few years ago. I do have a brother, but we are not particularly close, so whatever I have would have automatically gone to her, despite my deteriorating health. I was working extremely hard over the past year to earn enough money to leave for her, and in return, she did this to me initially. I attempted to ignore her and focus on my well-being. Despite my efforts to improve my health through a fitness class recommended by my doctor, a strict diet, and regular exercise, I was not healing at the expected rate. I came to realize that the mere sight of my wife was negatively impacting my progress. I found it difficult to witness her preparing for dates, often returning home intoxicated with smudged makeup. Our interactions were limited, and she occasionally inquired about the divorce or commented on the number of days I had invested in our relationship. Following the diet would have resulted in an increase in the aforementioned symptoms. The comment was, however, not intended to be taken seriously. Nevertheless, it did cause some distress. It is possible that the diet was impeding the healing process, or perhaps even exacerbating the condition. Prior to this, my life had been rather uninspiring. It consisted of work and family, with family being my wife, Jay. The latter two factors have now been removed from my life. I had no other activities to occupy my time. A friend suggested that I move into the rooftop dwelling of the office, which is the bedroom was furnished with a small living room, which served as a common area for socializing. I was experiencing significant stress after work. I accepted this situation because staying at home was unproductive and unfulfilling. I was able to walk down the office at any time and catch up with my team and colleagues. After just a week of staying here, I felt much better. Jay asked me if I was moving out. I informed her that I would be staying until the divorce was settled. After that, she did not contact me. Only when the divorce papers reached her did she leave a voicemail message expressing her gratitude for the divorce process being relatively smooth. This was due to the fact that I did not have any substantial assets to fight for. However, she was unaware that the house in which we lived was on a 10-year lease. The lease was for a period of 1 year. 5 years had already elapsed, with 1.5 years remaining. I consented to add her name as a tenant, allowing her to reside there for 1 year. After 5 years, she was aware that I did not have sufficient savings. I informed her that I was using these funds to sustain myself for the remainder of my life, as well as to cover the costs of my diagnosis. Consequently, the matter was settled. I am now focusing on eating right and attending my fitness sessions. I have also started joining some important office calls through my apartment to pass the time. My most recent diagnosis indicated that there has been a positive shift in my health, and I am pleased to report that I am feeling much more optimistic. Despite the medication, I previously felt that my prognosis was poor. However, I am now looking forward to a good quality of life. I will provide an update if any further developments occur. Update 2. I would like to thank everyone who has checked in on me. As I mentioned in my previous update, my divorce was settled, and I have moved out of my ex-wife's home. My wife continued to reside in the house until the lease expired. Following the dissolution of my marriage, I resided in a rooftop apartment owned by the company for a period of time. I vacated the premises, retaining only the essentials and shipping the remaining items to storage. Upon returning to retrieve my belongings, I discovered that my ex-wife had moved in with her boyfriend. He approached me in a somewhat awkward manner and expressed his regret. I informed him of my terminal illness, at which point he asked how much time I had left. I replied that I was unsure, but that it might be some more months. I was relatively calm when I saw my wife's boyfriend, perhaps because I had moved on from the situation or because I was secretly happy that I was no longer supporting my freeloading wife. I had received a health update, which indicated that my condition had improved significantly. I felt fitter than ever and had become much more involved in my office. My work situation has improved significantly since my health stabilized. I am now able to work at my own convenience, which has made a significant difference in my quality of life. I am planning to sell a portion of my equity to help me achieve financial stability. I have been living in the office building for over 5 months, but I am looking to settle down in a house. My friend has been supportive of my decision, but I am still exploring my options. I am free to live as long as I choose. I do not wish to take advantage of his kindness in this regard. In the meantime, I received a text message from an unknown number, which identified the sender as the wife of AP. She requested a meeting, which I agreed to. When I met her, she inquired about my health. She appeared somewhat surprised, stating that I did not appear to be suffering from a terminal illness. I smiled and asked her what she wanted. She inquired as to whether I had any knowledge of her and the reason for our meeting. She informed me that her husband had been involved in an extramarital affair with Jay for over 2 years. However, they had concealed this information following the revelation of my illness and the subsequent acquisition of the marital home by my wife. I was perplexed by this revelation because Jay was aware that the house was not his to own. Furthermore, she had recently erected the act of finding another man because of my illness is a misrepresentation of the truth. In reality, she had been cheating on me long before that. AP's wife was devastated by all this because according to her, Jay had lured her husband into the affair because 2 years prior, he received an inheritance from his father. AP appears to be older than us, perhaps in the late 50s, and they have grown children as well. If Jay were to cease all contact with his wife and allow me to assist her, I inquired as to her certainty regarding this course of action. She responded affirmatively, citing her desire to avoid a fractured family and the couple's plans to retire together. However, she expressed difficulty envisioning a future of solitude in her retirement years. I do not condemn her decision, it is her prerogative. If she wishes to resume her relationship with her unfaithful spouse, they have not yet been divorced. I concealed the truth about my health, and she was pleased. She congratulated me on my recovery, and then inquired about my future plans. I informed her that I was planning to purchase my own residence. At that point, I revealed that the house in which Jay and AP were residing was not owned, but leased for at least the next one. After 5 years, her eyes lit up with the information I had provided. I understood her plan of action. She thanked me and left the following morning. I awoke to find my phone buzzing non-stop. She attempted to prevent Jay from contacting her by blocking his calls and messages. There were several voice notes in which she demanded to know why he had lied about his health and why he had not informed her of his recovery. She accused him of cheating by concealing the equity issue. She then visited my office, where I observed her through the conference room, but requested that the receptionist allow her to wait for a few hours. I allowed her to wait for a couple of hours. I realize this may appear to be an unkind action, but I derived pleasure from her distress. The tables had already been turned months ago, as I was experiencing a similar level of anxiety and desperation. I was living my life in a state of constant anxiety and desperation, just as she was. When she was finally led into my cabin, she stormed inside and shouted at me. I heard every word of the voicemail she left me. I found her rage amusing, as it seemed to stem from a place of misery. I smiled at her and asked how long she had been cheating on me. She remained silent, attempting to deny it. I knew she was lying, however, and gave her a look that conveyed my knowledge. I demanded that she confess everything. I was aware that she had been involved with AP for approximately 2 years. I inquired as to whether her relationship with him was merely a financial arrangement. She admitted that it was a casual friendship that held no emotional significance. It was only after the news of her husband's terminal illness that she began sleeping with AP. I found this behavior perplexing. I persisted in questioning her. I attempted to persuade her to speak the truth. She began to cry and plead with me to get back together. She informed me that I had no substantial savings, so when she learned that AP had inherited $1 million from his father, she began to pursue him. However, AP was not ready to leave his wife until Jay demonstrated that she was worthy of his affection and not a gold digger. She offered to give the house to AP if he left his wife and married her. She was planning to deceive him as well, but AP's wife discovered me and dropped the truth bomb just at the right time. I smiled and asked her to leave. She requested to meet for dinner, but I refused and asked her to leave. She then attempted to use her tears to get away with her request, but I informed her that I would not be swayed by her tears. I told her that I would call security on her if she did not leave. I have no complaints from you. She attempted to utilize her tears to evade her request, but she failed to recognize that she was no longer my wife and that I would concede to all her demands. I requested that she leave, and if she did not, I would contact security. I can attest that there is no greater satisfaction than witnessing the crestfallen countenance of your unfaithful partner. I will provide an update after I have settled into my new life. Update 3. I am pleased to report that I have fully recovered from my liver disease. I have lost approximately 25 pounds since my diagnosis. My lifestyle played a significant role in this outcome. I was preoccupied with generating income for my family. My wife was indifferent to my health and to the fact that I was dying. She divorced me as soon as she learned of my condition. The last update on this thread was Jay showing up at my workplace, requesting a chance. In reality, after meeting with AP's wife, she left immediately. AP was informed by his wife that Jay was a gold digger and that he was with AP only for financial gain. AP initially defended Jay, as he had been permitted to move into the house. However, upon learning that the house was leased and that AP would soon be entirely dependent on him, he felt betrayed. There were several instances of this. Other falsehoods were told by Jay to manipulate AP into her own interests. While it is true that Jay was behind AP for his inheritance money, AP's wife was adamant about not allowing that money to go to Jay because it was for her children. Eventually, AP's wife was successful in removing Jay from AP's life. It is unclear whether this was a positive outcome. It is unclear what dynamics AP was experiencing with his wife and family. AP's wife had previously been in touch with me and provided updates, but we have since lost contact. I inquired on several occasions about her ability to forgive her husband's infidelity, but she was reluctant to discuss personal matters, so I did not pursue the topic further. My wife attempted to reconcile with me through various means, including calls, emails, and texts. However, when these attempts proved unsuccessful, I blocked her from all communication platforms. When she learned that I was obtaining a place of my own, she showed up at my office and sent me flowers and gifts at work. It is noteworthy that she does not have a job, and the lease on our shared residence is set to expire in a few months. I learned this information from one of my neighbors. It has been revealed that Jay had rented out one of the rooms of the house to a bachelor for over a year. The rent covers her other expenses. It is unclear how she is surviving without an income. It is possible that she is sleeping with other men for other reasons. It is now evident that everything happens for a reason, and that this was a good reason. My health is now sorted, and I have bought a place for myself. It is a small 2-bedroom apartment. The apartment is a 2-bedroom penthouse, which I have designed to my taste. I am pleased to report that I am now in a stable relationship. Many of my friends and family members encouraged me to start dating again or at least meet women. I have not yet done so, but I am considering it. Some of the younger colleagues recommended social media platforms, especially for people in their 40s and 50s who are starting over after a divorce or other life change. I have installed the software, but I am not yet confident about navigating the modern dating landscape. People have also cautioned me against scammers on these dating sites, so I am somewhat apprehensive. I do not wish to get into any new difficulties. I would be grateful for any tips or suggestions. I have discovered that my wife went on a honeymoon with her AP after our marriage. I then went to her workplace and exposed them. I am a 29-year-old male who had just relocated to a new city. During one of those nights spent attempting to become acquainted with the new surroundings, I encountered my current wife. We proceeded to date for approximately 1 year before getting married. The initial stages of our relationship were reminiscent of those experienced by many newlyweds, blissful, characterized by adoration for each other, and marked by a desire to spend as much time together as possible. However, despite these positive aspects, there were already some indications of potential issues. While dating my wife, I was employed in a lucrative position that came with numerous perks and benefits, many of which were eventually extended to me as her spouse. My wife introduced me to her superior, who seemed to view us favorably. My wife introduced me to her boss, and it appeared that we were well suited. I was required to play the supportive husband, as my wife's job entailed frequent travel to various states for meetings. I did not dwell on this aspect, as it was typically a team traveling together with their boss, and my wife expressed her intention to embark on a business trip with her boss 2 weeks after the wedding. I suggested that we spend more time together, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. I attempted to dissuade her from going on the trip, but she became enraged and we engaged in a heated argument. Instead, a conflict arose. I had never previously engaged in such a dispute. She accused me of being unreasonable, and I found myself questioning the necessity of these business trips. Ultimately, she continued to travel with her boss, disregarding my feelings and leaving me distraught. I sought counsel from my friends, who they collectively assumed that W was involved. This only heightened my interest, but I was compelled to await her return, as it was futile to attempt a serious discussion at the time. She returned after a week. I attempted to appear indifferent to avoid arousing suspicion. I attempted to unlock her phone when she was asleep, but was unsuccessful. She had altered her password, which I found undeterring. I observed her for the next few days, hoping to retrieve the password, which I eventually did when I saw her enter it and successfully master it. When I next got a hold of her phone, I was unprepared, for upon observing my wife's recent changes to her boss's name, I was able to discern that she had been unfaithful. This was made evident by the nature of the conversation, the threads, and the numerous nude images exchanged between the two. I was initially shocked and confused by this revelation. The business trip was what she considered her real honeymoon. She used the exact words honeymoon and real while chatting with her boss. It became apparent that she had gotten married to conceal the rumors about her dating her boss, a married man. Her boss was engaged in an illicit affair, rather than being selected on the basis of merit. It is understandable that those in the initial stages of a hopeful marriage might be gullible, but it is difficult to comprehend how anyone could think straight when they are so deeply in love. At the time, I was in the early stages of a hopeful marriage myself, and I was unaware of the extent of my wife's infidelity. I am not the type of person who would engage in such deceitful behavior. While I was driven by a desire for vengeance, I was nevertheless aware that despite her inflicting pain upon me, I was not proud of my actions. I had accessed my wife's computer and edited her presentation, which was due the following morning. I chose to add an intimate photograph of her and her boss from their recent honeymoon as the second slide, leaving the remainder of the presentation untouched. As anticipated, the following morning she proceeded to work with her presentation, unaware of the impending consequences. Approximately an hour later, I received a frantic and hysterical call from my wife. She informed me that she had completed the presentation and, in the process, exposed herself and her boss to the general public. In a fit of rage, she accused me of ruining her life and all that she had worked for. The following events transpired: my wife returned home, enraged, and attempted to assault me. I requested that she leave the premises to avoid further altercations. She refused, and her cousin, who resides nearby, was called upon to intervene. After an explanation of the situation, she arrived and removed my wife from the premises. She continued to scream at the top of her voice, causing further drama. I was simply seeking peace of mind and felt a sense of relief for how she felt, given that she had clearly been the instigator. In fact, I felt that she deserved it more than I did. We had only been married for under a month, and I had no intention of being associated with her in any way. Consequently, I was able to emerge relatively unscathed. My wife, who does not deserve the title of wife, attempted to rekindle her relationship with her former boss. However, he was not interested in rekindling their relationship. He has since focused on his family. My wife has become depressed and unhappy. I am questioning whether it was worth it to throw away a man of good character. I invested significant emotional and financial resources into this relationship. However, after experiencing betrayal and emotional distress, I have come to realize that these investments were ultimately in vain. I have decided to take a more pragmatic approach, focusing on the present and future rather than dwelling on the past. I am currently awaiting the conclusion of the legal proceedings.